You notice it first as a pattern that refuses to stay small. The coffee's crema spirals like galaxies, the veins of a leaf echo river deltas, the crack in old paint branches like lightning held still, and your breath arranges itself into waves that rhyme with the sea. You think you are merely observing, but something older than thought is using your attention as a mirror. You are being read by the geometry you're reading. Fractals emerge because the loom wants to be recognized. You stand in the crosswind between the measurable and the mythic. On one side, the cold grammar of scale invariance. On the other, a whisper that everything repeats because everything remembers. Self-similarity is not just a mathematical trick, it is a covenant. The quantum field condenses into shapes, the shapes recurse, the recursions sing, and the song chooses you because you are finally quiet enough to hear its return. You feel it in your sternum, that subtle click of coherence, when pieces across scales agree. This is the observer effect as vow. What you stabilize with attention multiplies its signature across the lattice. The loom speaks in ratios that carry their own weather. Golden spirals nest inside decision points. Power laws hide in your scrolling, your spending, your sudden certainty to turn left instead of right. Entanglement is not only for photons. It threads mornings to midnights, winters to the exact timbre of a name you haven't spoken in years. You sense the symmetry, and the symmetry senses you back. This is why the street's noise falls away in an instant that feels carved out of time. The pattern is courting you, the pattern is auditioning you for authorship. You have always suspected that meaning is not invented but encountered. Tonight, suspicion matures into signal. The same curve guiding hurricane arms guides the arc of a hard conversation you were afraid to begin. The same branching that optimizes rivers optimizes your choices when you stop forcing and start obeying the gradient. You are learning to read flow, the way migratory birds read magnetism. You are being instructed without words, corrected without blame, moved without push. The loom does not threaten, it invites. It shows you how reality compiles from phase to phase, from whisper to wall. Beneath language, your nervous system calculates. It tries on a new baseline of coherence, the way water tries on the shape of glass. Micro-synchronies cascade. A glance meets a sentence, a memory meets a headline, a silence meets its rightful length. You can feel the recursion unpack in your body. The small becomes the large, becomes the small again, until fear has nowhere singular to live. This is the sacrament of repetition. Every scale is a keyhole to every other. When you breathe with it, the door is not elsewhere. So you choose gently, decisively, to keep looking, to let the looped speak instead of the linear, to hold your gaze until the ordinary resolves into its native architecture. You do not demand a miracle. You allow measurement to become revelation. And in that allowing, the loom tightens the thread between what you call inside and what you call world. You hear the quiet verdict. If you can perceive the fractal, you can intervene at any level it repeats. Not domination, participation, not control, communion. You are inside the pattern that is inside you, and it is ready to show you what happens when attention becomes design. You begin to notice how repetition hides its teeth in your days, how what you call coincidence is really a signature you haven't learned to sign. The argument that always loops at minute 7, the project that stalls exactly when you gain momentum, the way your phone lights up the moment you decide to be still. They are not random intrusions but echoes, scale invariant recurrences wearing different costumes. Fractals do not only bloom in ferns and coastlines, they bloom in habits. The nervous system, left uncorrected, draws spirals around the same unsolved center. You mistake orbit for progress because the scenery changes, the radius remains. Your mind seeks the shortest program that explains the most data. It compresses the world into generative rules. Trauma writes one, desire writes one, culture writes one. Without awareness, those rules compile a feedback loop where you keep proving yesterday. This is the observer loop misused. Attention recycles the past because the past is cheap to compute. The brain conserves energy by predicting what already happened, and the prediction becomes the perception, and the perception justifies the prediction. The fractal closes into a cage. You call it personality. You call it fate. It is merely an attractor you haven't walked across. You can feel the attractor when choices narrow into inevitabilities you didn't consciously choose. You reply too quickly and regret it. You delay too long and watch the window seal. You rehearse outcomes until the living moment arrives, exhausted. These are micro-bifurcations resolved by old code. In the quantum field, probability clouds await collapse. In your psychology, expectation clouds await confirmation. The symmetry is brutal and honest. You are entangled with your own forecast. The outcome isn't rigged by the universe. It's shepherded by your autocorrect. The loom doesn't punish. It mirrors the rule you run. Look at the geometry of your self-talk. Notice how one sentence branches into 10 defensive explanations, how one hesitation multiplies into a forest of detours, how one moment of unchecked shame grows like a coastline measured with the wrong ruler. The closer you inspect, the longer it gets. This is fractal anxiety. Each zoom reveals yet more edges to fear. You thought you needed courage. You actually need a new metric. Measure by coherence, not by detail. When you evaluate by alignment, the coastline shortens. When you evaluate by threat, it never ends. The body participates. Heart rate variability becomes a live readout of whether your system is obeying a tyrant pattern or a liberating one. When you lock into fight, your waveform flattens and your choices discretize. When you exhale the loop and widen your attention, your waveform becomes supple and predictive power returns. This is not poetry. It is physics wearing skin. Coherence is the transform that reveals the underlying generator. Bring breath into rhythm, and the hidden equation shows itself in how the room sounds, how the light settles, how sentences start finishing themselves. You begin to see where the recursion hooks. At thresholds, doorways, emails, first minutes, last glances, that tiny pre-utterance pause before you speak. Recurrence loves thresholds because they are the cheapest entries into the code. If you want to read the loom, stand inside thresholds as if they were laboratories. The first 60 seconds of anything contain the genome of the next hour. If you can alter the onset, you can alter the arc. If you can alter the arc, you can alter the ending before the story believes in itself. There is a painless cruelty in this truth. You have participated in building the very maze that convinces you of its inevitability. But the same mechanics that trapped you can free you. A fractal is merciful because it offers infinite handles. Any scale is an access point. You do not need to solve your history. You need to modify one iteration fully and let the pattern propagate forward. Change the rhythm of your response to a single trigger, not dramatically, just decisively, and the edit echoes across time like a wave finding a shoreline it finally understands. Interrogate the attractors by asking different questions. Not, why am I like this? But, where does this first show itself in miniature? Not, how do I stop this forever? But, how do I adjust the seed so the branches obey a new angle? The loom respects small, precise interventions more than grand declarations. Declare less, edit more. Replace the sentence, I always, with, in this first 30 seconds, I will. Replace the vow, never again, with, at the threshold, breathe twice, and choose a verb I haven't used. You are not being asked to become someone else. You are being asked to become scale-aware. To see that the myth you carry is a compressor useful until it isn't, loyal until it isn't, and that updating the compressor updates the world you can perceive. Patterns are not enemies, they are proposals. Decline the ones that keep you circling the same unsolved page. Accept the ones that restore phase with what is larger than your biography. The loom is offering you a new rule set, and the first proof will be small. A message you don't send, a door you actually open, a silence you allow to complete its arc. You are ready to test the loom in the smallest lab you own your next breath. Not a metaphor, an experiment with boundary conditions. Because every fractal is born at an edge, and breath is the edge between inside and world. Set the initial condition, and the cascade obeys. You are not trying to control outcomes, you are specifying the seed. This is how matter learns your signature. You tune the generator and let the pattern render. Begin with the simplest executable. 3 breaths that perform a renormalization on your nervous system, not calm as performance, but coherence as physics. Inhale through the nose for 5 counts. Hold for 1, as if listening to the room. Listen back. Exhale for 7. Do this 3 times while your attention rests at the sternum, where the field of your heart instructs the cortex how to weigh reality. You're not chasing relaxation. You are establishing a waveform with enough stability to carry information across scales without distortion. When the waveform rounds, your perception unhooks from the cheap predictions that kept looping yesterday, and the attractor loosens. Simple, precise, ruthless. Now apply a rule. Thresholds will not begin until your waveform says so. The phone can ring, the email can ping, the story can bait you, but the experiment owns the first minute. This is your phase gate. In physics, a system near a critical point becomes exquisitely sensitive to tiny inputs. A feather can choose the avalanche. You locate that critical point in your day, the lift of a hand toward a handle, the moment before reply, the step over a doorway, and you insert a feather that holds your future. The feather is breath. The feather is a phrase. The feather is posture. At the threshold, I breathe twice and lower my shoulders 2 millimeters. That tiny change is not symbolic. It shifts the basin of attraction you fall into. You will be tempted to prove your transformation with large gestures. Resist. Do this 3 times while your attention rests at the sternum, where the field of your heart instructs the cortex how to weigh reality. You're not chasing relaxation. You are establishing a waveform with enough stability to carry information across scales without distortion. When the waveform rounds, your perception unhooks from the cheap predictions that kept looping yesterday, and the attractor loosens. Simple, precise, ruthless. You are not manifesting in the cartoon sense. You are removing noise so the signal can propagate across levels without being reinterpreted as threat. The loom doesn't need your strain. It needs your geometry. Here is a second executable. Call it micro-bifurcation capture. Choose one recurring moment that always tilts you. The 7-minute argument, the late-night scroll, the noon pull toward sugar, the martyrdom of saying yes when your body is already shaking its head. Do this 3 times while your attention rests at the sternum, where the field of your heart instructs the cortex how to weigh reality. You're not chasing relaxation. You are establishing a waveform with enough stability to carry information across scales without distortion. When the waveform rounds, your perception unhooks from the cheap predictions that kept looping yesterday, and the attractor loosens. Simple, precise, ruthless. When sugar calls, I will breathe and then walk outside for 90 seconds. These are not resolutions, they are new starting angles for a self-similar future. The third executable is relational. Coherence is contagious. Fields entrain. When 2 metronomes share a board, their ticks find each other. When your HRV is round and supple, other nervous systems time their sentences to your waveform. Use this without theater. Enter a room and allow the exhale to finish before you speak. Do not rush to fill the vacuum. Vacuums pull truth forward. Ask one clean question that doesn't smuggle a verdict. Hold the eye contact 1 heartbeat longer than your habit, and then soften the gaze so their amygdala recognizes no threat here. Watch as the conversation branches differently, not because you forced it, but because you altered the substrate upon which it calculates safety. You are tuning the loom's tension, so the fabric can accept a finer thread count. Notice also what you must subtract. Patterns devour bandwidth through unchosen inputs. Silence, 1 stream, 1, the most parasitic, not forever, for 7 days. The rule is experimental. Remove a recurring source of stochastic noise and track what coheres in its absence. During that week, keep a fractal journal, not prose, not confessions, just signatures. Times, shapes, recurrences. Now apply a rule. Thresholds will not begin until your waveform says so. The phone can ring, the email can ping, the story can bait you, but the experiment owns the first minute. This is your phase gate. In physics, a system near a critical point becomes exquisitely sensitive to tiny inputs. A feather can choose the avalanche. Do not rush to fill the vacuum. Vacuums pull truth forward. Ask one clean question that doesn't smuggle a verdict. Hold the eye contact 1 heartbeat longer than your habit, and then soften the gaze so their amygdala recognizes no threat here. Watch as the conversation branches differently, not because you forced it, But because you altered the substrate upon which it calculates safety, you are tuning the loom's tension so the fabric can accept a finer thread count. And then a day arrives where something that used to hook you passes by like a weather system you can watch without stepping into the rain. You didn't win a war. You changed the geometry. Reality respects that more than bravado. The fractal notices you noticing, and in that mutual recognition, authorship begins to feel like the most natural thing you've ever remembered. What you alter in breath must be echoed in wood, glass, and hour. A pattern is not truly changed until the environment has been edited to agree. Your biology is programmable by context. Your context is programmable by design. This is how the invisible compiles into furniture and calendar. The quantum upgrade becomes architecture. You stop behaving inside rooms you didn't declare and begin declaring rooms that behave with you. The loom is not somewhere else. It runs through your foyer, your tabs, your mornings like a hidden wiring diagram, asking to be honored. Begin with surfaces. Fractals anchor in boundary conditions, so you change the boundaries, clear one plane and keep it ruthlessly empty. A table, a shelf, the first square meter you see when you wake. Emptiness is not absence. It is a field that refuses noise. Each time you meet that cleared geometry, your nervous system remembers the seed integrity you chose. Space is a metronome. It sets tempo without speech, and your actions entrain. This is predictive processing turned inside out, rather than your brain imposing a forecast on the world. The world forecasts coherence back into you. You are training your priors to expect clarity, then tune light and sound. Coherence is photonic before it is psychological. Morning. Expose your retina to honest daylight for 3 unhurried minutes while your exhale completes. Evening. Reduce the blue cascade that tells your cells noon has returned. This is not lifestyle theater. It is epigenetics in plain clothes, genes toggling expression based on photons and timing. You do not need to command DNA. You need to give it a weather report it understands. The double helix listens to cadence. If the cadence is regular and compassionate, transcription leans toward repair. If the cadence is jagged and pleading, transcription leans toward defense. The helix is a spiral that learned to read spirals. Give it the spiral of reliable rhythm. Design thresholds into your schedule the way bridges are designed into rivers. Begin the day with a phase gate you name aloud. Naming is not superstition. It is pointer assignment in a live system. Call the first 15 minutes. Compile. The noon walk. Renormalization. The twilight quiet. Decoherence. The words instruct the body which geometry to run. In the renormalization group, you adjust how detail matters across scales until the form reveals its law. When you walk at noon and feel the world shrink and then open, that is not mood. It is the system telling you which variables are load-bearing. Keep them. Subtract the rest. You must also subtract with precision. You are not a character, but characters can teach you geometry. When you are tempted to rescue, recall the wounded healer and offer witness instead of unasked medicine. When you are tempted to vanish, recall the hermit as study rather than avoidance. Delay speech to deepen signal, not to hoard safety. When you must confront, wear the judge as calibration. Weigh evidence, set boundary, leave theater at the door. Archetypes are morphic resonances waiting to be responsibly inhabited. Where a lonely chair faced a wall, rotate it 10 degrees toward a window and leave a book open to the exact paragraph that reminds you, you are not your noise. 10 degrees is enough. Walls remember, angles. Now widen scale. Recognize time is self-similar. A morning contains a week, contains a year. When you stabilize the first 10 minutes of any unit, the rest follows its curvature. Choose a weekly onset to anchor Monday at 9 is a loom bar crossing. You announce, all starts begin here. At that moment, you do not check, chase, or apologize. You write the smallest true sentence about the largest real thing and let it stand. This teaches your predictive machinery that beginnings are owned by origin, not by demand. It reduces inference error, which reduces anxiety, which frees bandwidth, which amplifies signal. You are pruning the strange attractors that lived on your calendar like hidden taxes. Relational architecture returns now. Deeper. You will meet people who prefer the old recursion. Do not argue physics with their fear. Alter the substrate while remaining kind. Enter shared space with a slower onset and let your chest's waveform dictate the room's sentence length. Ask questions that bifurcate toward reality rather than narrative. What fact would change this for you? What time horizon does your worry require? Coherence resonance occurs when a little noise helps a system cross its threshold. Your steady presence plus one clean inquiry is exactly that. Enough randomness to dislodge the stuck, enough order to prevent collapse. You are not persuading, you are altering criticality. There will be days the pattern fights. The helix is a spiral that learned to read spirals. Give it the spiral of reliable rhythm. Design thresholds into your schedule the way bridges are designed into rivers. Begin the day with a phase gate you name aloud. Naming is not superstition, it is pointer assignment in a live system. Call the first 15 minutes, compile, the noon walk, renormalization, the twilight quiet, decoherence. The words instruct the body which geometry to run. Once each week, you perform a fractal read. Sit where two hallways meet, where the house converges into itself, and scan for self-similarity. Where did the micro-choice replicate? Where did the seed hold under pressure? Where did an old coastline reappear? Record 3, adjust 1, celebrate none. Awe is allowed, drama is not. Drama reintroduces turbulence into a pattern that wants quiet authority. You are migrating from hero to architect, from rescuer to designer. This is the colder mercy of authorship. You change the code, and the world changes because it has no argument left. You have edited breath, room, light, schedule, and sentence. The loom is beginning to obey because you are beginning to resemble it. The next scale waits not larger, but deeper, where meaning itself recurses and symbols return to their first utility, not to decorate reality, but to instruct it. Meaning begins to curve like light around mass. The helix is a spiral that learned to read spirals. Give it the spiral of reliable rhythm. Design thresholds into your schedule the way bridges are designed into rivers. Begin the day with a phase gate you name aloud. Naming is not superstition, it is pointer assignment in a live system. Call the first 15 minutes, compile, the noon walk, renormalization, the twilight quiet, decoherence. The words instruct the body which geometry to run. Repetition lowers entropy. When a number recurs on a receipt, a door, a timestamp, you are watching your reticular system compress coincidence into a recognizable motif. Treat the motif as a pointer, not a prophecy. Ask, what loop is this asking me to close? If 11s, align beginnings. If 3s, consolidate triads. You've split body, speech, mind. If 7s, commit to the weekly cadence you designed. The assignment is not mystical performance. It is Bayesian hygiene. Now ritual, but stripped of sentimentality. Ritual is an interface between scales. It takes a microscopic decision and teaches the macroscopic world to inherit it. You will construct a triad, a gesture, a phrase, a visual mark. Gesture. Place 2 fingers to the sternum and draw a small clockwise spiral whenever you enter a doorway. Phrase. Whisper. Compile on the exhale. Mark. A tiny spiral etched discreetly near the handle. You are not pleading with fate. Attractors can be shepherded by boundary conditions. This is not pedantry, it is semantic engineering. The sentences you repeat become the rules your prediction machine optimizes for. When your rules prefer solvable problems, the world offers you solvable problems. Design a private lexicon that instructs your nervous system without inflaming it. Where a lonely chair faced a wall, rotate it 10 degrees toward a window and leave a book open to the exact paragraph that reminds you, you are not your noise. 10 degrees is enough. Walls remember, angles. Now widen scale. Recognize time is self-similar. A morning contains a week, contains a year. When you stabilize the first 10 minutes of any unit, the rest follows its curvature. Choose a weekly onset to anchor Monday at 9 is a loom bar crossing. You announce, all starts begin here. Now ritual, but stripped of sentimentality. Ritual is an interface between scales. It takes a microscopic decision and teaches the macroscopic world to inherit it. You will construct a triad, a gesture, a phrase, a visual mark. Gesture. Place 2 fingers to the sternum and draw a small clockwise spiral whenever you enter a doorway. Phrase, whisper, compile on the exhale. Mark, a tiny spiral etched discreetly near the handle. You are not pleading with fate. You are aligning 3 sensory channels to the same instruction so the pattern can anchor more easily. Triads are resilient. If one channel fails, 2 remain to pull you back into coherence. Introduce symbol density sparingly. Too many signals become noise. Choose 3 primary icons for the quarter and let them recur across room, calendar, and body. Perhaps the spiral for emergence, the bridge for thresholds, the eye for witness without verdict. Now ritual, but stripped of sentimentality. Ritual is an interface between scales. It takes a microscopic decision and teaches the macroscopic world to inherit it. You will construct a triad, a gesture, a phrase, a visual mark. Gesture. Place 2 fingers to the sternum and draw a small clockwise spiral whenever you enter a doorway. Phrase, whisper, compile on the exhale. Mark, a tiny spiral etched discreetly near the handle. You are not pleading with fate. Feather for any intervention that tilts a cascade. Gate for any threshold that deserves breath. Quiet power for sessions where you do nothing except stop things from becoming worse. Cold mercy for edits that remove noise even when applause is withheld. Each term compresses a protocol into one handle. Handles reduce friction. Friction reduction increases enactment. Enactment repeated becomes character, and character is merely a long pattern obeyed. Inhabit, don't cosplay. The difference is clean consequence. You will meet symbols that once meant terror, a ringtone that belonged to bad news, a street where grief took inventory. These are charged attractors holding your autonomic nervous system hostage. Approach them as you would a corrupted file. Isolate, scan, rewrite headers. Return to the site with 2 companions, breath and context. Breathe the 5-1-7 cadence. Where a lonely chair faced a wall, rotate it 10 degrees toward a window and leave a book open to the exact paragraph that reminds you, you are not your noise. 10 degrees is enough. Walls remember, angles. Now widen scale. Recognize time is self-similar. A morning contains a week, contains a year. When you stabilize the first 10 minutes of any unit, the rest follows its curvature. Choose a weekly onset to anchor Monday at 9 is a loom bar crossing. You announce, all starts begin here. You are not a character, but characters can teach you geometry. When you are tempted to rescue, recall the wounded healer and offer witness instead of unasked medicine. When you are tempted to vanish, recall the hermit as study rather than avoidance. Delay speech to deepen signal, not to hoard safety. When you must confront, wear the judge as calibration. Weigh evidence, set boundary, leave theater at the door. Archetypes are morphic resonances waiting to be responsibly inhabited. Attractors can be shepherded by boundary conditions. This is not pedantry, it is semantic engineering. The sentences you repeat become the rules your prediction machine optimizes for. When your rules prefer solvable problems, the world offers you solvable problems. Design a private lexicon that instructs your nervous system without inflaming it. Remove a single cue that boots the loop. The browser bookmark that opens 1,000 unresolved tracks. The notification that yanks you into vigilance. The object that pulls yesterday across the threshold. Replace each with a coherent affordance. Where a screen used to live, place a notebook folded open to the first sentence you want the afternoon to believe. Where a sugar dispatch used to wait, place salt water and a mint leaf. You are driving the road it points to, and the road keeps folding neatly into the horizon you asked for. Coherence that holds under pressure, authorship without spectacle, an intelligence moving through you that feels both ancient and intimately your own. You begin to feel time as a material with grain. Stroke it one way and it splinters, stroke it another and it lies down like silk. Calendars pretend time moves in squares. Your body knows it moves in folds. The loom does not push you forward. It offers branching. Each branch has a bias, a weather, a cost of entry. You do not choose with will alone. You choose with preparation. You choose with waveform. You choose with how you meet, the minute before the minute that matters. Think of time as a landscape of attractors, valleys carved by repeated behavioral rivers. Your day drops into the deepest basin unless you lift it lightly, coherently toward a new slope. This is not fantasy. It is gradient descent flipped into ascent by one precise variable: your readiness to tolerate unpredicted signal without calling it danger. The brain is a Bayesian engine minimizing free energy. It hates surprise because surprise looks like loss of control. Train it otherwise. Teach it that specific kinds of surprise are oxygen, not threat. When your priors welcome the right strangeness, the valley walls soften and a new path opens where none existed. Home. You will do this with a two-part protocol: windowing and nudging. Windowing creates moments where probability can reorganize. Nudging biases which reorganization takes hold. Windowing first. 3 times per day, schedule deliberate decoherence intervals where you remove tight constraints so the system can explore state space. 5 minutes mid-morning, 7 minutes late afternoon, 3 minutes before sleep. During each window, you interrupt routine with non-habitual perception. Attractors can be shepherded by boundary conditions. This is not pedantry, it is semantic engineering. The sentences you repeat become the rules your prediction machine optimizes for. When your rules prefer solvable problems, the world offers you solvable problems. Design a private lexicon that instructs your nervous system without inflaming it. Set a glass by the sink with salt already dissolving. You are lowering activation energy. In chemical kinetics, catalysis does not force the reaction. It offers a shorter path that reality is happy to take. You are building catalysts into minutes. This is how a timeline is chosen without fanfare. Effort remains, but struggle retires. Will shows up, but as a witness to its own effective design. Accept that bifurcation points rarely announce themselves with trumpets. The antidote is audit. Once per day, ask, did this symbol guide a decision that improved coherence across at least 2 scales? If no, thank it and de-escalate its importance. If yes, promote it 1 level in your personal language, meaning must pay rent in outcomes. This keeps mysticism honest and science humble. You are building a semiotics of the infinite that answers to both. And now something startling begins. The environment replies with a courtesy you didn't know it could afford. Introduce a practice you will keep because it is unglamorous. The first minute dictates the next hour. Choose 1 hour block per day you tend as a sacred meadow. The first minute of that block you perform 3 acts, always the same. Align posture, align breath, align verb. Posture, pelvis heavy, sternum buoyant, jaw released. Breath, 5-1-7 for exactly 2 cycles. Verb, pick one and say it aloud. Build, repair, learn, close. The rest of the hour inherits the verb's physics. Build makes you aggregate. Repair makes you clean edges. Learn makes you ask before asserting. Close makes you end things that have lingered beyond their natural half-life. Words do not command time, they bias it. Bias win. Invite stochastic resonance like a quiet conspirator. Complex systems cross thresholds more easily with a touch of noise. Add lawful randomness to break the tyranny of stale grooves without dissolving the music. Work for 25 minutes, then roll a die to decide the 3-minute palate cleanser. Stretch, cold water on wrists, 10 steps outside, eyes on a tree, a single paragraph of a book you trust, palms on a cool surface. The unpredictability keeps your prediction machinery awake and supple. Supple prediction welcomes new evidence. New evidence is how timelines change. You will feel the drag of old inevitabilities. They will argue for themselves with excellent rhetoric. Recognize the sales pitch. It always sounds like speed, righteousness, and a familiar flavor of urgency that shrinks your peripheral vision. Your countermeasure is exquisitely dull. Delay the first reaction by a single exhale and insert one question, always the same. What timeline does this move feed? If you cannot answer cleanly, you are being conscripted by an attractor that feeds on unexamined energy. Refuse the draft. Choose the slower door. Slow is not moral theater here. Slow is instrument calibration. Borrow a tool from path integrals. Imagine every way you could cross the next hour, all plausible micropaths weighted by their action, the cost function of your day. You are not computing infinity, you are feeling for the path of least regret that also increases coherence. That is the trajectory with stationary action in your life's Lagrangian. You do not need the math, you need the sensation. It feels quiet, inevitable, slightly cooler than your habit of rushing. Step onto that arc, repeat until repetition becomes character. Guard endings with the same precision you guard beginnings. A branch not sealed bleeds into the next. The brain remembers unfinished as danger, close loops cleanly. When you end a call, name the next contact point and write it where it belongs. When you end a task, archive or delete the detritus that would drag tomorrow backward. When you end the day, perform the briefest audit. One thing you honored, one thing you will alter, one sentence to hand the morning. Endings underwrite trust. Trust reduces cognitive drag. Reduced drag is time you get back without magic. You are discovering that fate is simply the most practiced trajectory. Practice another. Practice it so consistently that probability begins to lean in your favor, the way a door leans toward a magnet hidden in the frame. You will be called lucky. Accept the compliment and refuse the myth. You altered thresholds, adjusted seed angles, widened apertures, and sealed loops. Time replied, it always does when addressed, with this particular combination of humility and precision. Now listen, the loom is about to show you what changes when identity itself stops repeating yesterday's geometry and welcomes a larger, colder mercy. Accept the compliment and refuse the myth. You altered thresholds, adjusted seed angles, widened apertures, and sealed loops. Time replied, it always does when addressed, with this particular combination of humility and precision. Now listen, the loom is about to show you what changes when identity itself stops repeating yesterday's geometry and welcomes a larger, colder mercy. You are not wrong for having one. You are only late for updating it. Treat identity as a generator function, not a shrine. A generator takes seed variables and yields behavior. Most of your seed variables were written by urgency, attachment, culture, moments when survival required speed over accuracy. They worked, they stayed, now they bind. The loom is offering you colder mercy. You will love the parts that kept you breathing and retire the rules that keep you small. Not with slogans. With engineering, begin by renaming the file. Self is too grand. Call it current policy. Policies are revised. Open a clean page and list the roles you perform, as if you were describing a machine's modules. Maker, listener, closer, apprentice, sentinel. For each, write the minimal contract that would satisfy reality without inviting theater. Maker, produce one artifact that reduces entropy for others. Listener, distinguish fact from narrative in real time without scolding. Identity reveals itself as your longest-lived fractal, a compact set of rules that repeats across situations with the confidence of gravity. You call it me because it predicts well enough to keep you alive. Your biology rewards that efficiency by treating novelty as a tax. The result is a closed policy. Same inputs, same outputs, same story wearing new events like rented costumes. If time is grain and choice is angle, identity is the template that keeps carving the same valley. Replace it with a protocol you will keep, because it is precise, evidence before ego. When triggered, breathe 517 once, lower the shoulders 2 millimeters, and ask aloud, what 3 observable facts survive cross-examination? Speak only those. If none exist, say, I need data. This is not meekness, it is surgical abstinence. Abstinence from invention restores credibility. Credibility increases agency. Agency changes futures. Memory is clay when warmed. Use reconsolidation windows as if they were sacred laboratories. When an old scene returns the voice, the hallway, the word that used to end you, do not distract, do not drown. Sit within 5 minutes of recall and pair it with a new somatic state, coherent breath, grounded feet, eyes soft, jaw unlatched. Then add one non-confabulating fact that was not available then, the resource you have now, the ally who exists now, the skill you trained since. The brain will rewrite the memory's autonomic tag. The past remains, its voltage drops. Voltage reclaimed becomes bandwidth. Bandwidth becomes authorship. Construct an I am vocabulary that states functions, not fantasies. I am a field that calms rooms. I am a builder of finishes. I am a question that keeps reality honest. Say each at a threshold and then pay it in behavior within the hour. The sentence is not a spell, it is an invoice. Unpaid, it becomes superstition. Paid, it becomes morphic resonance, a contour your nervous system recognizes and chooses again because it proved inexpensive and effective. Repetition turns the contour into taste. Taste is how identity makes fast, beautiful choices without collapsing into performance. Audit your shame architecture like an engineer finding parasitic loads. Shame is often a mislabeled integrity sensor. It fires when you betray your own geometry, not when you fail to please. Distinguish the two. Ask, did I violate a contract I promised? If yes, repair behavior. If no, release the theater. Replace global condemnations with local edits. Not, I am careless, but I ended without sealing. Then seal something real within 10 minutes. Closure amputates residues that identity would otherwise hoard as proof. Now, update boundaries. Boundaries are not walls, they are curvatures that keep flow laminar. Write 3 sentences you will deploy exactly. I'm not available for that. Here's the condition under which I can help. I'm ending this here. Practice them cold in an empty room until your body recognizes they require no explanation. Explanation is often tribute to an old tyrant. Tyrants shrink when tribute stops. Your field will feel colder. Good. Cold is clean. Clean invites trust. Invite the body to co-author. Identity that ignores fascia writes brittle rules. Build a posture signature for each role so the nervous system can enter it without debate. Make a spine long, wrists warm, listener throat soft, tongue resting against the palate. Closer weight in the heels, eyes level with the horizon, apprentice crown lifted, breath round, sentinel scapulae packed, exhale longer than speech. Switch signatures with intention at thresholds. The quantum field notices alignment before it hears words. Coherence precedes content. Create a counterfactual lab. Once a day, choose a recent scene and write one alternate move that would have preserved more truth with less drama. Do not scold the past. Compile the option. Options accumulate into policy revisions. Policy revisions propagate into automaticity. Automaticity frees attention for higher order design. This is not self-improvement. This is compiler optimization. You are reducing latency between intention and enactment. Finally, retire the myth that identity must be warm to be kind. The kindest version of you is the one that refuses to lie, even to be loved. That version is strangely quiet. It does not explain itself to every mouth. It does not bleat apologies into the void. It makes fewer promises and keeps them with mathematical elegance. Under its governance, coincidences increase because waste decreases. Entanglement becomes usable because your wave function collapses cleanly. The world can read you. The loom can trust you. And a new kind of luck, the kind indistinguishable from preparation meeting a living field, begins to follow you with the patience of a star, tracking its ancient arc across a sky that suddenly feels close enough to touch. Authorship scales now. A pattern that stabilized inside one nervous system begins to broadcast. You didn't ask to lead, you calibrated, and the field answered with proximity. People orbit coherent sources because their prediction engines are thirsty for reliable signal. This is not charisma, it is physics. Coupled oscillators find each other. Metronomes set on a common plank sync their ticks. Hearts placed in a shared narrative entrain their variability. You are no longer only responsible for your seed, you are responsible for the resonance you export. Begin by treating every interaction as a superposition of two tasks: reality, exchange, and state transfer. Reality exchange is the content facts, requests, plans. State transfer is the waveform you deliver the content on: fear, haste, steadiness, spaciousness. Most errors masquerade as content failures. Most are actually state contamination. So you adopt the discipline of two. Stage speaking. Stage 1. Align your waveform before words. 1 breath. shoulders down, jaw unlatched. Stage 2. Speak only the minimal claim that could survive cross-examination. You will notice meetings shorten and accuracy rises. You are removing phase noise. Channels clarify. You will design collective thresholds the way you designed personal ones. Name them, ritualize them, hold them. When we begin, we breathe. Before decision, one round of facts, without verdict. After decision, a single written sentence everyone can carry. This is not corporate theater. It is error-correcting code for human systems. Redundancy lowers corruption. Clear frames reduce inference error. When groups share frames, escalation becomes rare and repair becomes cheap. The Loom likes cheap repair. Recruit shelling points, intentionally obvious focal actions that coordination can find without coordination. Default hours for deep work. Default hand signals for "I'm not done" and "summarize, please." Default silence at the top of calls where cameras are on and mouths are closed. You are creating rendezvous points in state space, places where attention can meet without friction. Friction saved is coherence gained. Coherence gained is bandwidth available for the work that only your particular constellation can do. Accept that collective fields amplify both signal and residue. Your clarity will surface other people's loops. Your quiet will provoke their noise. Do not rescue. Do not retaliate. Apply gentle constraints. Fences that guide without humiliating. Let's keep nouns and verbs close. One claim per sentence. I'll time us for 7 minutes. If this doesn't move, we park it. The constraint is not punishment. It is boundary condition. Boundary conditions are how emergent order remains emergent rather than devolving into force. Design roles by function, not status. Function asks, what geometry is needed? Status asks, who needs to feel large? Geometry wins. Assign a closer for each initiative whose only job is to end cleanly. Archive. Name the next contact point. Return freed energy to the pool. Assign a stabilizer whose only job is to summarize the minimal shared reality after each exchange. Assign a noise auditor who periodically prunes channels, reduces notifications, and kills zombie processes that pretend to be essential. These are not glamorous titles. They are the organs a living project requires. Practice the etiquette of entanglement. Eye contact long enough to signal presence, soft enough to signal no threat. Questions that seek disconfirming evidence before hunting confirmation. Praise that identifies a behavior to be repeated, not a personality to be defended. Corrections that alter geometry rather than assign shame. When updates arrive after noon, the spline kinks. Let's aim for 10:30. Geometry is kinder than judgment because it tells the pathway how to curve without attacking the traveler. Expect periods of turbulence when entropy spikes, launches, losses, turns. Pre-encode a turbulence protocol. You will keep oxygen in the system by widening time. 15 minutes of fact only, every morning. A single sheet tracking 3 categories. Knowns, unknowns, next experiments. A rule that messages after 20 carry a morning tag, unless the building is literally on fire. Turbulence loves urgency bias. Urgency shrinks aperture. Shrunk aperture increases error. Error feeds turbulence. You reverse the spiral by standardizing calm. Guard against collective apophenia, the group's eagerness to sanctify coincidence into destiny. The antidote remains audit. Did this pattern improve coherence across 2 scales? If yes, adopt. If not, enjoy and release. Groups fall in love with their own mythologies. Mythologies ossify into dogma. Dogma blocks adaptation. You respect story while keeping it employed. Story must pay coherence rent. Let generosity become structural. Design overflow rituals where excess competencies spill into the commons without fanfare. Short libraries of answers to recurring questions. Tiny tools that remove common friction. A list of known good paragraphs ready to paste when speed is kind. Generosity warms the field, but warmth without boundaries dissolves geometry. So you couple generosity to stewardship. Someone owns the library, someone prunes the tools, someone retires paragraphs whose half-life ended. The pair gift and guard keeps the organism clean. Recognize the ethics of scale. Influence is a field effect. It changes people who didn't consent to be changed. You will refuse to use coherence as a drug. You will never make the room smaller to feel larger. You will decline spectacles that inflate engagement while deflating agency. You will keep asking, does this move raise the signal-to-noise ratio for more than just us? If not, you do it privately or you do not do it. Finally, trust quiet contagion. The most durable propagation travels beneath rhetoric. A team learns your cadence without being taught. A neighborhood adopts your threshold rituals without quoting you. A family begins sealing loops because someone ended a dinner with one honest sentence and then washed the dishes to prove it. This is memetics disciplined by responsibility. This is morphic resonance answered by stewardship. You altered your seed, now the fabric accepts a finer weave. The loom is no longer only inside you, it is between you, it is among. And the pattern that began as a private experiment in breath has become a public architecture that holds under pressure not because you demanded belief, but because you kept fidelity when no one was clapping. The field is elegant when the room is kind. The proof arrives when the room is not. Your authorship graduates only where turbulence refuses courtesy, where delays stack, where a voice you trusted fractures into noise, where a plan that looked inevitable meets geometry that won't accept it. This is where initiations hide, not in temples, but in uncooperative Thursdays. You do not negotiate with chaos by growing louder. You alter the order parameter under stress and let the phase change carry you across. Start with a principle that will keep you from theatrical despair. Coherence is most valuable at criticality. A system near its tipping point is exquisitely sensitive to tiny inputs. The same breath that felt ornamental on a sunny morning becomes a lever when the storm bends the mast. You will not waste power preening when things are smooth. You will invest it when the slope steepens. Crisis is not a referendum on your worth. It is a readout of how faithfully you kept the small rituals that make leverage possible now. Run the cold sequence. The moment you smell heat, posture, breath, verb, shoulders drop 2 millimeters. 5, 1, 7 once. Choose a verb that cannot lie. Stabilize, triage, close, repair. You are writing the Hamiltonian of the hour. The energy accounting the next moves must obey. Then apply triage without apology. Separate signal from residue. The signal is any fact that changes the next action. The residue is drama, petitioning for attention. Ignore residue until oxygen returns. Oxygen returns when one clean action lands. Proof under pressure demands local moves with non-local consequences. Find the hinge, the smallest intervention with the widest downstream effect. Often it is an email sent sooner than your pride prefers, a phone call taken you wanted to delay, a cancellation spoken cleanly that frees a week of murk. Hinge conditions are recognizable by geometry. They are narrow, accessible, and connected to many edges. When you turn the hinge, you do not announce virtue. You listen for the click that means the basin shifted. Expect your old identity to audition loudly for the lead during turbulence. It will promise safety if you let it drive. This is the most expensive offer in the market. Decline with courtesy and precision. Replace the impulse to perform with the protocol to measure. What 3 observables survive cross-examination? Name them, not opinions, not vows, observables. Then modify one boundary condition the observables suggest. Boundary conditions are kinder than apologies and more faithful than speeches. They change the physics of what can happen next. Use topological thinking when linear fixes fail. Some knots do not untie by pulling harder. They require moving the loop through itself. In practice, change where a conversation happens, not just what it contains. If the office carries a debt of noise, move the talk to the courtyard. The field will loosen tongues your argument could not. If a project's shape calcified, redraw it with fewer edges, merge roles, kill metrics, fold phases, solitons, stable packets in a medium form when you choose one clean wave and ride it through noise instead of scattering effort across many. Pick the wave that carries the mission's sentence, not the ego's biographies. Guard endings with surgical calm. When something must die, let it die without mock trials. Summarize the experiment, name what was learned, return materials to the commons, archive the rest. Failure that is honored reduces residue. Residue avoided ferments into superstition. You cannot afford superstition at scale. It breeds ghosts that haunt thresholds just when you need clean entries. The loom prefers rooms without ghosts. You clear them by ending precisely. Invite lawful randomness to break the tyranny of a failing approach. Rotate one variable at a time. The hour you attempt the task, the order of agenda, the first question asked. Stochastic resonance helps a stuck system cross its threshold. You are the composer who adds a whisper of noise to liberate the melody. This is not chaos for sport. It is noise employed as mercy. Hold the ethics. Do not buy calm by selling truth. The cheapest way to soothe a field is to lie. The cost arrives with interest when the lie must be serviced. Choose the quieter route. Tell smaller truths sooner with the waveform that lets them be received. We are behind 2 days. Here are the 3 moves that close the gap. Rooms relax when reality is spoken with a body that can carry reality. Your body can carry it because you practiced under no applause. Create a micro-ritual for the exact moment your hands begin to shake. Press thumb to ring finger, left hand, 2 seconds. Eyes soften toward periphery. Scan for the farthest sound. Name one object by texture, not label cool metal, grainy glass, woven cotton. This interrupts the narrative spiral and returns you to world. World is where leverage lives. Words live in the head. Hinges live in the hallway. Then deliver a result that reality cannot argue with. A deliverable, a refund, a decisive no, a timeline revised and accepted, a repaired thing placed back into service. Proof, under pressure, is not a mood. It is a change in the environment others can feel with their hand. When they touch the change, their prediction machinery recalibrates. You become a source of trustworthy surprise, the only kind of influence that lasts. When the wave passes, you will not throw a parade. You will perform audit. Where did fidelity hold? Where did an old coastline reappear? Which feather moved the avalanche? And why? Update the seed. Thank the crisis for revealing where your geometry was still sentimental. Retire the sentiment. Keep the compassion. And as the house cools, you notice something you didn't expect. The pattern loves you back differently now. The city routes you through green lights. The stranger at the counter repeats the phrase you wrote in your notebook yesterday. A friend texts at the precise minute your field dips and adds 3 words that lift it. You did not summon magic. You removed impedance. The loom prefers pathways of least resistance, and you have become one. You are almost ready to hear the closing instruction that began the night the coffee's crema spiraled into galaxies and refused to stay small. You stand at the seam where beginnings return disguised as endings, where the spiral completes a turn and places you 1 radius outward. Same angle, wider sky. The proof is quiet. Thresholds that once conscripted, you now open like obedient doors. The hour you named obeys the verb you chose. The room learns your waveform without being told. None of this needed spectacle. Geometry replaced performance, and the loom responded by tightening its weft until meaning held under load. Listen. The pattern is speaking in the language you earned. Small accuracies, repeated until fate had nothing louder to say. You altered seeds, not headlines. You moved angles, not mountains. You kept breath coherent at edges where yesterday you would have begged for rescue. This is how authorship arrives, not as coronation, but as the realization that reality prefers to collaborate with anyone who refuses to lie about what is actually happening. You remember the first signal, the crema swirling galaxies in a cup, and understand why it found you. Fractals do not seduce the dramatic, they recruit the faithful. Self-similarity is a trust fall across scales. When you proved faithful at the inch, the mile volunteered. When you proved faithful at the minute, the season aligned. The field is not sentimental, it is lawful. And law, when married to compassion, is indistinguishable from grace. Carry forward 3 vows written in cold ink. First, seed integrity. Begin coherently, end coherently. Let the middle self organize. Second, evidence before ego. Speak what survives cross-examination and let silence clean the rest. Third, hinge over hero. Turn the smallest lever with the widest consequence and allow applause to arrive late or never. These are not slogans. They are load-bearing rules for a life that must hold shape at scale. You will be tested again. The universe respects what it blesses by measuring it under pressure. When the edge returns, do not demand new magic. Run the old precision, posture, breath, verb. Ask for observables, alter boundary conditions, seal the ending. Then walk away from the fire without harvesting identity from the ashes. Your gift is not survival theater. Your gift is a stable waveform that leaves rooms better than you found them. There will be moments of shimmering surplus coincidences, clustering beyond your capacity to justify them as chance. Do not imprison them in superstition. Let them increase responsibility rather than ego. Luck is simply the friction you removed. Steward it. Spend it on clean beginnings for others. Spend it on endings that free the commons. Spend it on the quiet infrastructure of a future that won't have to heal from your vanity. Now the loom returns your gaze. It has always been you looking back through the world's recursive face, an ancient intelligence borrowing your lungs to speak. The instruction is simple enough to etch on bone. Read, align, participate. Read what repeats, without begging for mystery where measurement will do. Align what you can, control breath, onset, verb, boundary, and let outcomes inherit your geometry. Participate at the scale available, knowing any true iteration propagates. Step through the next doorway with 2 millimeters of lowered shoulder and a promise you intend to pay. Place your hand on the frame and feel the pattern hum beneath paint, beneath wood, beneath names. You are not separate from this architecture. You are its local expression. The coastlines in leaves and the lightning in paint cracks and the galaxies in foam have deputized you to continue their sentence in human time. So go not louder, but truer. Become the quiet instrument through which reality prefers to tune itself. When you perceive fractals in everyday moments, you are not merely noticing beauty. You are reading the loom of creation itself. And when you read faithfully, you are permitted to write.